7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please rise in body and or spirit for our gathering hymn. Voice still and small, we'll go through it twice.
All right, this is probably better, right? Okay, I'm Mike Brooks. I'm a member of your Board of Trustees, and I'm also currently serving as the congregation's treasurer. But I'm happy to say that I'm not here today to talk to you about money, but instead to welcome all of you to this morning's service. We especially want to welcome our visitors, both here on campus and those who might be streaming. We invite our visitors to participate in any of our events. We encourage visitors to find out more about us and about Unitarian Universalism, and we invite you to consider registering on our virtual guest book, which you can find through a link on the home page of our website, which is uucsarasota.com. And if you do sign up, we will send you our weekly newsletter and Zoom links to the sorts of virtual events that of which we have many. If you are in person here this morning, there is a sign-up sheet for visitors, and as always, we invite you to join us afterwards for coffee and conversation. We do look forward to getting to know all of you. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Reverend J. Wolin. I have my own mic. We just have a few short announcements. The membership team, woo, echo, 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 echo. The membership team wants to let you know that if you're interested in learning more about Unitarian Universalism or this congregation, they encourage you to come to our Learning About UU class, which is going to be on Saturday, May 20th from 9 a.m. to noon. They do ask for you to sign up in advance so they know they have at least a minimum number of 5 people. And if you're interested in learning, you could be a non-member, you could be a new member, you could be a long-time member. But maybe you still don't know about how things work around here. Everybody is welcome to this class, but we need a minimum of 5. You can sign in at the welcome table, or there'll be other information out there. Also, after the service today, whether you are inspired by today's service, or you had first time here and you're inspired, or you've been coming for a while and thinking about becoming a member of the church, if you're interested in joining the church, you can do so after the service, right in the minister's office, which is in the building right across from the sanctuary, the Lexau wing. And so we invite anybody who is interested. And lastly, starting next week, we'll have one a month starting May 14th, right after service, and then at Zoom at 2:30, an all-Zoom meeting. We will be starting our congregational conversations about many of the big congregational items that are going to be going on. We want to hear from you. We want to share with you and learn from each other. I know we'll be spending a lot of time on the eighth principle question during May 14th, but there will be a time for other issues to be discussed as well. And so we encourage you to attend, everyone. And so now, I invite you all to rise in body and or spirit for our opening hymn, number 298, Wake Now My Senses. Our opening reading is from astrophysicist Adam Frank. When nature speaks, who are you hearing? So what then is this experience of sacredness? Perhaps in the moments when that strange, pregnant feeling of presence rises up to meet us, that sense of more and of less, we are gaining an intuition of the thing in itself. I mean the ability to hear the whispers of what lies beyond the boundary of the expressible and the inexpressible. I once heard poetry described as just this kind of boundary, and what is true of poetry is equally true and apparent in music, dance, and all forms of art. They allow us to amplify those whispers that speak through our intuitions of the boundless. These whispers even appear at the edges of our explanations. They are what give explanations their power to enthrall us and ignite our awe. They animate the fierce poetic economy of mathematical physics and the thrall of the Hubble Space Telescope as well. In this way, science, too, becomes a gateway to the experience of sacredness. In the end, what we have is a conversation, a lifelong dialogue with life. It's a conversation expressed not in words, but in the immediacy of experience and the poetry of the one single now. And that is exactly where the experience of sacredness lives. So please join me now in sharing a UU source of wisdom, which is printed in your order of service and on the screen behind me. And please join in our chalice lighting words. As we light this chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, we affirm our first source of wisdom, which informs our living tradition. Direct experience of that transcendent mystery and wonder, affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life.
Good morning. Can you hear me? I don't know what's better. Let's see if I can get this to work. Well, I missed standing up here last week, but I think the smiles on the faces of the people eating the beignets was just as valuable to me. Our story today is Maybe Something Beautiful, How Art Transformed a Neighborhood by F. Isabel Campoy, Teresa Howell, and illustrated by Rafael Lopez. In the heart of a gray city, there lived a girl who loved to doodle, draw, color, and paint. And every time she saw a blank piece of paper, Mira thought to herself, maybe. And because of this, her room was filled with color and her heart was filled with joy. On her way to school one day, Mira gave a round apple to Mr. Henry, the owner of the shop down the street. She gave a flower to Miss Lopez, the lady with the sparkling eyes. She gave a songbird to Mr. Sachs and a red heart to the policeman who walked up and down the streets. And on her way home, Mira taped a glowing sun onto the wall, hiding in the shadows. Her city was less gray, but not by much. The next day, Mira saw a man with a pocket full of paintbrushes. He gazed at the wall. He looked at her son. He held up his fingers in a square and peered through them. He said thoughtfully. What do you see? Mira asked. Maybe something beautiful, the man replied. Then, just like that, he dipped a brush into the paint. Bam, pow, the shadows scurried away. Sky blue cut through the gloom. The man's laughter was like rainbows spreading across the sky. Who are you? Mira asked. I am an artist, he said. A muralist. I paint on walls. I'm an artist too, she told him. So he handed Mira a brush. Well, then come on. Mira dipped into the boldest, loudest color she saw. Yow-wee! The wall lit up like sunshine. And as the man drew a picture on the bricks, Mira added color, punch, and pizzazz. Soon, Mr. Sachs joined in. Then came others. Everyone painted to the rhythm, salsa, merengue, bebop. Even Mira's mama painted a dance, the cha-cha-cha. The whole neighborhood became a giant block party until the policeman walked up. Excuse me, he said. The music stopped. Mira put her brush down. They were surely in trouble. The officer cleared his throat, then paused. May I paint with you? He asked. So Mira handed him a paintbrush, and the music started again. Teachers and papas jumped in, babies too. Mira and the man handed out brush after brush. Colors spread throughout the streets, and so did joy. Wherever Mira and the man went, art followed, like the string of a kite. And after they colored the walls, they painted the utility boxes and benches. They decorated sidewalks with poetry and shine, and everyone danced. Together, they created something more beautiful than they had ever imagined. When their clothes were splotched with 1,000,000 colors, everyone sat down to rest, except the muralist. His eyes sparkled. You, my friends, are all artists, he told them. The world is your canvas. And he smiled wide, then pulled everything together in his big, sweeping motions. His paintbrush was like magic wind. And when he finished, Mira added one more bird way up in the sky. Maybe, she thought, just maybe. So this book is actually based on a true story. At one time, the colorful East Village near downtown San Diego, California, did not have murals on its walls, nor quotes from Gandhi or Martin Luther King or Cesar Chavez written on the sidewalks. Benches were not works of arts that you see now, and people living in the area were not part of this vibrant community today. Instead, the streets were gray and drab. Well, closer to home, I remember how St. Petersburg, to our north, was a dull, drab 9-to-5 downtown. But over the last 2 decades, more art, including mural art, was added, and it just grew and grew, changing the entire vibe of the area. People wanted to be there, young people, old people, and everyone in between. Art calls to each of us deep inside. So now, I invite our younger UUs to join me in the West Wing, where we will get ready to paint a mural together. And I invite all of you to see our progress and add to our mural if you are so inclined. So let's get creative. Thank you.
For our centering in words today, I offer you this blessing of creativity by the Reverend Barbara Wells. May you find the deep peace of creation flowing in your spirit. May your senses awake to the creative spark that lives within you. May you walk in beauty and seek to create beauty wherever you go. May you take the risk of discovering the divine within you and around you. And may the Spirit of life bless you with courage and with hope as you live creatively with others side by side. As we go into this moment of silence, I invite you to ponder and discern what is that creative spark within you. So having grown up in the Bronx in New York City, I was only a train ride away from Manhattan and some of the greatest art museums in the world. And I was very fortunate that my parents would take me into Manhattan and enculturate me into a different world than the one in which we lived in the Bronx. You wouldn't imagine the stark cultural differences, but they were there. I sort of take it for granted now, but you know, many of the friends that I grew up with in the Bronx shockingly, never went into Manhattan. This different world just a few miles away, but it might as well have been on the other side of the world for them. Exploring to acquire new experiences, I truly believe, is necessary for growth. The change we need, whether physical, spiritual, mental, are so close that sometimes we just need to start the journey to find them. For some reason, we either don't recognize how close change is, or we are in fear that even if we take that short journey, we will upset the certainty of our way of being. Fear that the idea that is the foundation of our belief system could be wrong. Fear that the wall that keeps chaos at bay will be breached. Fear that we will be thrust into situations that will make us uncomfortable. Now, generally, people like comfort. I like comfort. Comfort is not a bad thing in and of itself. I think many people strive for comfort in their lives, and there is a time and a place for comfort. But if comfort is our only goal, we become insulated. We become insulated to the outside world. You know, I think about all these people who live in gated communities, and why do we need to live in gated communities? I want to think about that, right? We're insulated from the outside world. We're insulated from new ideas. We are insulated from reaching our full potential as human beings if we stay too comfortable. Perhaps even we are insulated from the fact that our comfort may be causing suffering to other people. Sometimes we need to be made uncomfortable in order to grow as human beings. And to me, that is one of the great benefits of the arts. It forces us to stretch our mind, our body, our spirit. It allows us to see the world in a different way. It moves us and transforms us so that we will never look at the world in quite the same way again. Now, I am not an art scholar, but I am moved by art. Those of you who are friends with me on Facebook know I often post works of art on Facebook, and if you're not and you want to, you're not required to, but if you want to, feel free to friend me on Facebook. It's j.wolin, and my picture is right up there. You know it's me. Although there are a lot of fakes and frauds, so you got to be careful. But as a spiritual practice, most nights when right before I go to bed, I search the internet to look at art. It's amazing what you can find on the internet. There's some terrible things you can find there, but there are some really, you have any art museum, they have all their artwork up on the internet. And I find looking at art, enjoying the beauty of art, sometimes being challenged by it, exploring new ways to see how others envision the world, I find a great way to end my day. Now, one of the museums my parents would bring me to visit was the Guggenheim, which you can see up there on the screen behind me, which was designed by Unitarian Universalist architect Frank Lloyd Wright. Now, the Guggenheim has an impressive number of Kandinsky paintings whose style is considered abstract expressionist. And the picture here shown is called Composition 6. Now, Kandinsky wrote a lot about the connection between spirituality and art. He compares the spiritual life to a pyramid. And he states, and I quote, "The artist has a mission to lead others to the pinnacle with their work." And about 6 blocks south of the Guggenheim is an excellent museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, colloquially known as just the Met. Although the Met seems to get more in the news today for its gala and all the designer outfits that the stars wear to it, although I would say those outfits themselves are a work of art in and of itself. But if we can show the next picture here, this is by George Innes, entitled Spring Blossoms in Montclair, New Jersey, currently at the Met. And really such a diverse group of art there. But if you want to see more paintings of Innes closer to home, you don't have to go too far. You can go to the Tarpon Springs, Florida, Unitarian Universalist Church. They have numerous Innes paintings, ones that formerly hung in the Louvre, which he gifted to them when he was a member there. And about 2 miles south of the Met is the Museum of Modern Art. And if we can switch the picture, I particularly like the mobiles of Alexander Calder. His art forces us to imagine form and structure in a different way. And so it sort of forces you, it's just challenges the way you see things in the world. And at least I like that. His art, so I in addition to art museums, I attended the symphony, ballet, opera, various types of theater, both Broadway musicals, off-Broadway, and even some off-Broadway avant-garde theater. Avant-garde performances push all boundaries, ignoring existing structures and forms of the status quo, creating something totally different and innovative for its time. I mean, I remember there was one show I went to, and for about 10 minutes, they just spent smashing bottles against the wall. That was like almost the whole show. And it was jarring. I mean, especially as a kid, it was jarring. But that was its purpose, right? To get people out of their comfort zone and to perceive their experiences differently, to look at the world in a different way. Now, avant-garde never becomes mainstream because by its nature, once it's popular with the masses, it is no longer avant-garde. But it does have its time and place. And I feel life is like that a lot as well, right? If all we ever did was experienced avant-garde living, disruption all the time to our way of thinking, we would never have time to reflect and discern why and how to change as human beings, and never have time to actually develop into who and what we hope to be. Now, sometimes it takes breaking the norm, right, before you can create a foundation to build upon and grow. And from that new foundation, you could grow farther than what you could otherwise previously had been able to. And then at some point in the future, circumstances will change again, and we will have to recognize the need to adapt and to change again. Humanity seems to have this combined need for certainty and uncertainty, for something new and for something old, something stable and something innovative. And if we don't recognize the changes around us in the world, we will just stagnate. Now, when I first graduated college many, many years ago, there was no such thing as a personal computer. I really hate to date myself by saying that. I mean, they came in shortly after, but I know it may be very hard for some people to believe this, but when personal computers were first introduced, people resisted them, right? People resist change, even though we can look back, and even for some of the downfall of social media, you know, it's clearly made things in our life, or access to information in our life, better. I remember reading once, a very respected writer wrote, "No great work of art could ever be written on a computer." And you know, when I heard this, I thought, you know, those people who use quill and ink probably said the same thing about typewriters, right? You know, if we don't adapt, we stagnate. I don't know anybody, honestly, who uses quill and ink anymore, let alone a typewriter, right? In essence, keyboards are typewriters now, right? Of course, you got the QWERTY, you know, keyboard, because, you know, if anybody typed fast, all the typewriter keys would get jammed, so they created the keyboard intentionally to slow down typing. I mean, I think it's fascinating when you think about that. And so it's easier now. And by the way, I was able to type up to 35 words a minute in high school. I took a typing class, mostly so I could meet girls, but it came in very handy, actually, as an adult when we got computers. So anyway, you know, it is true. I think we can argue for a simpler life. Like, we can retreat from the world around us, choose not to interact with others. And there is a need for that at times in our life, to center ourselves, right? But by gathering together, we are saying we choose to live in the world right? Gathering together as Unitarian Universalists is a statement that what we say and what we do matters. And we believe that we can have an impact on our lives and on the world for the better. Just the act of gathering, discerning, and acting impacts and transforms our own lives. You know, we often have this vision of an artist, you know, alone, suffering, tormented by their demons. And I want to put forth for you a different vision, something called collaboratively creative. Collaborative creativity is something that allows us to be greater than the sum of our parts. Now, I want you to think of a choir, which will be coming up and singing in a few moments. You know, they bring together solo voices into a harmony, right? Harmonies that they could not create by their own individual voices. And I think that's true for all of us in life, right? We can create a great harmony together. Now, I read an article, interestingly, in the Atlantic magazine, interestingly, about John Lennon and Paul McCartney, who were half of the Beatles. There they go. And in the article, it states that Paul was very meticulous, and John lived in chaos. Paul was a diplomat, and John was an agitator. Paul was willing to put in long hours to get it exactly right, and John was impatient and always wanted to move on to something new. And you know, there was a new documentary on, I think it was on HBO, about their writing process and musical process, and it was dead on. But they knew they needed each other. And I believe, this is just my personal opinion, but I believe that together they made better music than they ever did separately. The article points out that in between albums, when they oftentimes would go their separate ways, they were influenced by different artists, styles, and circumstances. But when they came back together, right, their overall richness of experiences was expanded, right? And they synthesized their differences, not in compromise, but in a way that created something better. And this collaboration is something I would say Buddhists would call the middle way. So I'd like to give you a vision of this. You can see the first sign, right, is people having different opinions, styles, visions, and thoughts like this on opposite ends like that. But often, like we see in the second picture, where the dot is in the middle, right, we think of compromise. We think of each side giving up something. No one is truly happy. Something is sacrificed by all. But we move forward together peacefully. But I want you to remember the quote I mentioned earlier about Kandinsky's quote, where he compared the spiritual life to a triangle, right? Where he said, the artist has a mission to lead others to the pinnacle with their work. But finding the middle way is like reaching the top of that triangle. The recognition of and benefits of multiple perspectives and talents merge and synthesize to produce a beautiful harmony with our lives together. Now sometimes, though, before the harmony, there is chaos. And chaos is part of creation, right? But itself, by itself, nothing is formed from chaos. Chaos needs to be combined with trust and with structure, and then something can be created of something that is beautiful and lasting. We experiment with forms and challenging ideas, whether that be in our governance, trying new programs, trying new ways of doing programs, or how we offer them. And in community, we need to understand that we may find beauty and meaning in different ways. That is what it means to be Unitarian Universalists, right? We need to be open to experiencing and accepting beauty in the ways that others find beauty and meaning. We need to be able to harmonize and synthesize those differences. The foundations we have built for ourselves is our covenant with each other, our covenant to care for each other, our relationships with each other, our love for each other. One way we continue to keep the foundation of this community strong is by expressing our generosity of spirit in caring for and accepting each other for who they are, our generosity of time by volunteering in various ways. And I do want to second that pancake breakfast and Benoit's were delicious. And as well, yes, our generosity of money. And it's with that thought in mind, we will now take our offering. Please be as generous as you can. If you're online or in person on your phone, there's a link on the YouTube page. And as well, thank you for your generosity. Let this sacred time begin. Our next reading is entitled The Poised Edge of Chaos by Patricia Moynihan. Sand shifts down one grain at a time, forming a small hill. And when it grows high enough, a tiny avalanche begins. Let sand continue to sift down, and avalanches will occur irregularly, in no predictable order, until there is a tiny mountain range of sand. Peaks will appear, valleys, and as the sand continues to descend, the relentless sand, piling up and piling down, piling up and piling down, piling up. Eventually, a single grain will cause a catastrophe. All the hills and valleys erased, the whole face of the landscape changed in an instant. Walking yesterday, my heels crushed chamomile and released intoxicating memories of home. Earlier this week, I wrote an old love letter flooded with need and desire. Last month, I planted new flowers in an old garden bed. One grain at a time, a pattern is formed. One grain at a time, a pattern is destroyed. And there is no way to know which grain will build the tiny mountain higher, which grain will tilt the mountain into avalanche, whether the avalanche will be small or catastrophic, enormous or inconsequential. We are always dancing with chaos, even when we think we move too gracefully to disrupt anything in the careful order of our lives, even when we deny the choreography of passion, hoping to avoid earthquakes and avalanches, turbulence and elemental violence and pain. We are always dancing with chaos. For the grains sift down upon the landscape of our lives, one then another, one then another, one then another. Today I rose early and walked by the sea, watching the changing patterns of the light, and the otters rising, and the gulls descending, and the boats streaming off into the dawn, and the smoke drifting up into the sky, and the waves drumming on the dock, and I sang. I sang, but not to make the order of the sea, nor the dawn, nor of my life, nor to make order at all, only to sing. Only to sing clear notes over sand, only to walk footsteps in the sand, only to live.
To sound, oh beautiful and splendid things, blue is whitened on a cliff, soaring farthest waves and seas, and children's faces looking on, old in wonder like a car. To sell as music like a curve of gold, scent of pine trees in the rain, eyes that love you, arms that hold, and for your spirit still divine, holy thoughts that start the night. Spend all you have for loveliness, to buy and never count the cost. For one singing hour of peace, count a year of strife well lost. And for a breath of ecstasy, give all you have been or could be.
Thank you, choir. You know, we can look at our lives every day and every act as a work of art in and of itself. It's easy to see our lives in that way if we look at it over a long period of time. And of course, the older we get, we can see the arc of our lives and see the key decisions we've made that led us to where we are today. But I think that's true really of almost any age, truthfully. We can see how we have changed year in and year out. Not every decision works out as we expect it to, but hopefully that makes us wiser for the next decision we have to make. Each day the decisions we make are part of our own individual creation story, the art of our life. Or I would say as well, the creation of this church, right, which is part of the larger creation of Sarasota, which is part of the larger creation of this state and our country and the world. Now imagine if we looked at our life as a work of art. What would you want to create? What style is the art of your life? Is it abstraction? Is it fine art? Is it impressionist? Think about it and realize that could change over time as well. I think it is an interesting question to ask ourselves periodically. And each summer I go on study leave, and that's what I do. I think about what new programs will be meaningful to the congregation and the community, and how to support others within our community to develop, the programs that are already existing. For myself, I also plan what spiritual and educational retreats I want to experience in the upcoming year. I do think it is important to plan. I do. Despite all the talk of chaos, I learned not to get attachment to the outcomes of those plans, but I do think it's important to plan. Even abstract painters who abhor structure often do have a vision of what their work represents. We may not see it, but they often, in interviews or speaking with them, they often do have a vision. In fact, within our lives, we can be both abstract and fine artists. As an example, I think of the artist James Whistler. When we think of him, we tend to think of this fine art piece, his painting Whistler's Mother. But Whistler also painted in the abstract. Nocturne, which is showing here, is now considered a masterpiece. But at the time it was displayed, it was very controversial for its abstract nature. My point is, we do not have to be limited to just one perspective. Our lives, our community can include a multitude of parts. The key to the art of life is to pursue things that capture your passion. Having passion for something doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy or that it'll come naturally to you. It takes hard work, just like anything. But if there is passion there, if it calls to you, you will follow it, even when it seems difficult, even when you have a failure. If you're passionate about it, you'll keep on with it. Claude Monet, in giving advice to painters, said, and I quote, "Not to fear mistakes. The discipline of art," and I would say the discipline of life, "requires constant experimentation, wherein errors are harbingers of original ideas because they introduce new directions of expression. The mistake is outside the intended course of action, and it may present something that we never saw before, something unexpected and contradictory, something that may be put to use," end quote. So the key is not to live a life of fear or of regret or of perceived limitations. Prior to coming to Sarasota, I would go in the summers to writing workshops at the University of Iowa, which had the reputation of being one of the best schools for writing in the country. Many famous authors came out of that school. And you know, I would go to these classes with some really good published writers, and it was daunting. I was in awe of the talent of these people. But what I learned about myself, and I hope to instill within you, is that others' talents do not diminish us. As long as we are being authentic to who we are, with integrity and doing our best, and being open to learning. Being around people who are more talented helps us learn. Being around people with different experiences than we have can widen our lens of knowledge, right? Collaborating with others in a trusted environment can give us confidence to find our own voice and find that middle way. Doesn't matter how old or how young we are, I just want to tell you, we are all capable of doing this. Sometimes life forces, through the course of experiences, blind us to our vision. And I am here to remind you that we always need to do the inner work, and that inner work should lead to help you determine what your outer acts should be. You're capable of taking action today, right now, well, maybe after the service, but I encourage you to do just one little thing today, something towards whatever it is you are passionate about. It could be looking up something on the internet, it could be calling somebody for advice, it could be even just sitting down and thinking about it. But you can do one small thing today, and that will put you on that path to growth. You know, even when I don't have time to meditate sometimes, there's always time to take 3 deep breaths to calm myself. Can always do one small thing. It doesn't have to be grandiose, but just one small step, and then every day you take another step towards that journey. And after a while, you will be on your way. And the ultimate question you need to ask yourself is, how do you want to live your life? And so I share with you from the book Art and Fear, and I quote, "You have a choice between he wrote art, but I'm putting it in life. You have a choice between giving your life your best shot and risking that it will not make you happy, or not giving it your best shot and thereby guaranteeing that it will not make you happy." Or not, right, and it becomes a choice between certainty and uncertainty, and curiously, uncertainty is the comforting choice, end quote. Well, within Unitarian Universalism, we create a container, a safe space to explore the uncertainties of life, a safe place to be uncomfortable. Let us work on our lives and our church creatively, improving our harmony on a daily basis. Let us be our best selves. Let us do so collaboratively with open hearts and open minds, and let us continue to create this beautiful work of art that we call Unitarian Universalism. May it be so. I invite you to rise in body and or spirit for our closing hymn 368. Now let us sing. I could have kept on dancing and singing for another few verses there. Okay, our closing words, the song of your heart. Poets keep writing, writers keep writing, singers keep on singing, painters keep on painting, teachers keep on teaching, caregivers keep on caring, activists keep on activating. All of us, I'd come up with something, all of us, let us make our lives a work of art, a masterpiece, so the world can experience us, our values and our religion with all of our beauty. Remember who you are. Remember you are free to choose how to live and be in this world. Remember always to sing the song of your heart for yourself, for each other, and for our community. Please join me now in extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for your presence here today. Get cookies and coffee, and if you want to join, come to my office in 10 minutes. Thank you.